Now that my chocolate is tempered, I will bring all the things required. So I've got my thermometer, my scrapers, and I need my molds. And I will pour my chocolate into the molds. I'm going to start with the shoe mold. It's a magnetic mold, so it's got two parts. But as I've mentioned previously, I also intend to use the clips to make sure that the mold is secure. It's sometimes, even if it's got the magnetic parts, well, it's getting filled with so much chocolate, the mold intends to come apart. So I don't want that risk of having my chocolate spilling onto the table. So all I have to do is just to make sure that the chocolate runs in every single corner and it covers the whole surface, inner surface. And then I have to remove the majority of the chocolate by just tapping with either the handle of the scraper or I don't know, with a different tool. And the reason why I'm tapping is that I really want the air bubbles to escape. Now that I've got a thin coat of chocolate on the mold, I can also just fill the heel, adding the chocolate to just fill up the heel of the shoe. And again, just want to make sure that the mold is secured with the clip, the edges are clean, and this can go on the side to start crystallizing. I have to say here that the room temperature is about 18 degrees, and the temperature, like I said, between 18 and 20 degrees is essential, along with the moisture, which has to be very low, and the fact that the room should be odor free, as chocolate intends to absorb the moisture and the odors very quickly. Now I don't have a huge amount of chocolate tempered, but with whatever I've got, I can fill comfortably 4 of those large cavities. And the next thing which I'm going to do is I will help the chocolate to get on the other 2 cavities by just using my spatula, the silicone spatula, because literally all I want to do is to have a nice coat of chocolate, so I don't need the cavities to be completely filled with the chocolate. It's just enough to create that coat. And again, just want to make sure that there will be no air bubbles, and I can just scrape off the excess, keep tapping to remove the excess chocolate. And when the chocolate is well tempered, after coating the cavities and scraping the excess, if you keep the mold upside down and then upright, you'll notice that the chocolate stops flowing. Even if you keep it on the side, it doesn't flow, it just stays as it is, still glossy but without being runny anymore. And then that's what we really want to see. So we want this mold to be now exposed to the air, like cold air, so that the crystallization process can start. And to allow more a rapid cooling, I have to keep it upright. If I will keep it flat, then obviously the air will not be able to cool the bottom of the mold. So I want the mold to be upright. Now, I do have lots of crumbles of chocolate inside of my plastic bowl, and those crumbs and pieces which I've ended up with while filling the forms, being cold will obviously cool my chocolate. So if I will double check the temperature, I will notice that is actually much lower than it should be. So at this point, I will have to pop the bowl into the microwave and just heat up a little bit. Now, there are 2 ways to do it. I mean, more than 2 ways. You can use a heating gun, but just you run the danger of burning the chocolate in one spot, as the hot air comes out from the fan. You can use the microwave. Again, there is a little bit of risk as you can burn the chocolate, so you have to put it in the microwave at the lowest possible power and the shortest time, maybe like 2, 3, 4 seconds. Or you can use a bain-marie, but then the danger is that you might put some moisture. So the ideal way, I would say, is just to have some pre-melted chocolate at about 50 degrees, untempered, but just pre-melted, so that you can top up continuously. And that will help you to maintain the fluidity of the chocolate, but also to raise the temperature whenever the temperature of the chocolate drops. So again, I filled the cavities, which are much smaller now, but many, comparing with what we had on the previous mold. Just scraping the excess. And I want to again tap to make sure that if there are any air bubbles, they will escape. And then I'm going to empty the cavities, as again, just want to make a shell. I don't want to get a full piece of bonbon. So just literally doing the shells. And then obviously removing the excess, scraping the surface to get it clean. It's a bit tricky, as usually you will not keep the mold in front of the camera. You will keep it upside down to eliminate the excess. But obviously I want you to see what happens in here. Now, if you feel that you've got too much of a chocolate inside of the cavities and we really don't want a very thick shell, what you can do, you can just tap on the table. So just turn the mold upside down and then tap to remove the excess. You can tap the mold on the table, or you can use your tool. Yeah, so both ways will work. So just again scraping to clean the surface. And you see, if you don't have a wide scraper, then you're somehow stuck, because it's quite tricky to do it with a small scraper, and you cannot scratch the mold, so you have to be quite careful if you've got a small scraper. And then once it's done, you will have to put again the mold on one side, because you want the air to cool the inner and side of the cavities and the back of the mold as well. Now, just scraping the excess chocolate on the table, that's obviously reusable, so I'm going to put it back on my bowl, but I know that's going to change the temperature of the chocolate, so I have to rewarm it. I do have a microwave which can be set to power, which is quite low, and I don't run that high risk of burning the chocolate, because literally it's just a very mild power. I think it's about 300 watts, and I can comfortably warm up the chocolate without being afraid that it might burn. But if you've got just a normal microwave with power of 700 watts or even more than 700, you have to be quite careful how you do it. As I said, ideally would be just to have some pre-melted chocolate and keep adding when necessary to your base chocolate, so that you can maintain the fluidity and also increase the temperature. Now, as the chocolate starts crystallizing, you see it's losing the glossiness. Now I've got a little bit of a edging, which I can remove because the chocolate is not set yet. When it's set, if you try to remove the edges, the chocolate shapes will snap, so it's not advisable to do it. So just going to stir properly so that the temperature becomes even. super, super important. Just imagine that unmelted chocolate or cold chocolate is white and warm chocolate is brown. So it's two-tone rather than two temperatures. You have to stir till you get through uniform color versus like temperature. So you want to make sure that you stir properly. That movement, it will encourage the formation of the good crystals, but also will make the temperature even throughout. If the temperature is not even, when you pour the chocolate, some areas of the mold will get in contact with warm chocolate, some others with cold chocolate, so that the setting time and the crystallization will occur differently. So you have to make sure that everything is uniform, so that you stir to get the same temperature of chocolate throughout. Okay, just checking now to see that I'm okay. 29. And what I'm going to do is just put the second coat on my shoe, because I've put one coat, but that's just not enough. The shoe will be too thin, so I want a thicker coat to make the shoe quite sturdy when I take it out from the mold. Yeah, if it's just one coat, especially with the white chocolate, if it's quite fluid, it's just too sensitive to touch, and it will break. Okay, just warmed up just a little bit more, but it's just a little bit on a high side because it's already 31 degrees, and normally on a white chocolate you shouldn't exceed 30. It's safe somehow to go up to a difference of 3 degrees, but I wouldn't recommend that for molding like shapes like shoes. Maybe to make bars it will be fine, but not for making like large items like the shoes. So I just have to stir a little bit more. When you go over 3 degrees, you literally detemper the chocolate, and you have to start everything from the beginning. So okay, now I'm going to go back to going to do the bubbles first, because it's, as I said, the chocolate is a little bit too warm. 1 degree is more than it should be. So by just maneuvering the bubbles first, I will cool the chocolate. So again, just using the spatula to paint the bubbles with a second coat of chocolate, and then I will empty the cavities. What you have to make sure, and that can happen, and it's practically very easy to happen. You don't always need to put the second coat. If you want, you can go along with one coat. But I intend to put a very thin first coat and then the second coat. If the chocolate is well tempered and the temperature of the room is adequate, what it can happen, you might end up actually having some crystallization running immediately after you mold your items. So by the time you put the second coat, the bubbles or the shapes can set, and they might come out from the mold. So you have to make sure that you don't allow that to happen. So when you decide to put the second coat, you shouldn't leave too much of a time distance in between applying the first coat and the second coat. So just again picking all the bits from the edges. I mean, yeah, chocolate is well known as being super messy, but that's what we have to cope with because it just literally runs everywhere. So I'm going to put now the whatever chocolate I've got left into the shoe, and again just help another layer of chocolate to coat my shoe, and then just clean the excess. Okay, and again just trying to tap a little bit so that the excess chocolate is released. That looks good. Just cleaning the edges, and now putting the mold on the side. Now I don't have very much chocolate left, but it is kind of enough to put whatever I've got there into a chocolate mold to make a bar. So again, just stirring to make sure it's all on a uniform temperature, and then just see if I can make one or two. I don't have to put very much, especially if I'm looking to put some topping, then I don't really need a huge amount of chocolate. If it's too much, it turns up super thick and it's difficult to break and to serve. So yeah, two are just fine. So going to tap again, I want chocolate to get leveled, but in the same time to get rid of all the air bubbles. And as you can see, out of a half kilogram of chocolate, managed to do a shoe, 6 half bubbles, like 3 full bubbles, and 2 chocolate bars. But you have to release those air bubbles, and then once they will be released, then you can add the toppings, whatever topping you decide to go for. I've decided here to go for some berries, like dried pieces of berries, and some nuts, a mix of hazelnuts and pecans. And yeah, obviously all you have to do is just to pick the toppings, whatever toppings you want to add, sprinkle them on the surface, and just gently tap so that they get in a little bit into the chocolate, not very much, but a little bit. If they don't get trapped by the chocolate, they will fall off when the chocolate will crystallize. You can put the nuts or the berries irregular by just sprinkling them on the top, or you can put them into a sort of an order, again here with the almonds, trying to align them nicely. And then obviously they will also have to be put on the side to for the chocolate to get crystallized. Now, in this case, you cannot put the mold vertically, and that's the reason why when you do bars, it takes longer for the chocolate to set, because it's a thicker layer, so you cannot lift the mold. But you can see all the others are starting to set, but it will take a little bit longer, as is the second coat. It will take a bit longer to crystallize.